Hello everyone, good afternoon. I welcome you all to the Ancient Indian History module for the UPSC examination. I am Pulkit, the History faculty at the Vedanta IAS Academy. So I welcome you all to another session of the Ancient Indian History, right? Okay. So as the people are still joining in the session, let me just start off by asking that if you have any doubt regarding the yesterday's session, if you have any problem about the things which we did yesterday, you can actually ask me now for the next 5 to 10 minutes. Then we are going to start off with the new topic. Then we are going to start off with the remaining topic of the sources of ancient Indian history. Then after that, we are going to start off with a new topic, right? Okay. Any problem if you people have? Okay. So, in the meantime, you people ask me the problems. Let me start by revising the whole idea which we did yesterday, right? So, in the yesterday's class, what we were doing is that we started off with a topic known as sources of ancient Indian history. I was telling you that how exactly the sources of history are very, very important and why exactly you need them, right? Why exactly you need the sources of history? In order to reconstruct the past, in order to reconstruct what exactly happened in the past time, right? So this is the basic thing which we needed the resources for. So we started off with the literary resources. Literary actually means the written resources. Literary means the written resources in which we saw the various categorization of the literary resources, like your Brahmanical resource in which we saw Vedas, Aryankas, Upanishads, Brahmanas. So there were the categories in the Brahmanical sources. Then we have the categories in the non-Brahmanical sources like the Jainism, like your Buddhism, all these things which we studied. Then we came to the non-religious secular text, which consisted of things like your Kautilya's Earth Shastra. That was a very, very important idea. Then we talked about the various genres of writing like your Kavya, poetry. Then we talked about the drama, giving you example of the Kalidasa, right? Drama. So those Puranas, all these things which we read in the yesterday's class were very, very helpful in understanding the past of our civilization, past of our society, right? But today, what we are going to study is about the sources only for first half of the class. But yesterday we were studying about the written sources. Yesterday we were studying about the written sources which are mostly found in the book form, right? Which are mostly found in the compiled form. Today, what we are going to see is that what are the other sources of history? That what are the other things which are very, very helpful in understanding the basic idea of history. So that will be the basic thing which we are going to start off with in today's class. So the first is archaeological sources. First is your archaeological sources, right? So these are important sources which tell us about the history of any society, any economy, right? Archaeological sources का exactly use ये होता है that these sources, they help us in telling stories about people who use them, right? उनके बारे में आर्किटेक्चर पूरा का पूरा अगर आर्किटेक्चर है आर्कियोलॉजिकल सोर्सेज में, तो वो हमें उस सोसाइटी के बारे में एग्जैक्टली बात बताता है, राइट? तो फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई एम टेकिंग आर्किटेक्चर एज एन आर्कियोलॉजिकल सोर्स, so I can actually take a very, very good example. Just see Mughal architecture. So when we talk about Mughal architecture, what we can infer from the buildings of the various great Mughal rulers, that is till 1707, is that from the time of Akbar to the time of Jahangir, the buildings were made and they actually reached their zenith. और उसमें point यहाँ पर ये है, the stuff which was used in making buildings, they actually tell us that how exactly was the economy of that particular time. For example, if you see the buildings of Akbar, like your Fatehpur Sikri, like your Agra Fort, right? All these buildings of Akbar, if you see Buland Darwaza, they are mostly made in red sandstone. They are made in red sandstone. Although they are massive and everything, but they are made in red sandstone. Whereas the building of Shah Jahan, the epic builder of Mughal Empire, for example, Taj Mahal, right? Just take an example of Taj Mahal. It was made from the finest marble which was available, right? So how exactly it tells us about that society? So the point is, so when Akbar came to the throne in 1556, and when he started building the monuments and everything, the point is he was still expanding his empire. He was still trying to make the whole economy of the Mughals at that particular point of time very, very prosperous, right? That is why the building materials which he used were not as expensive as compared to that of your Shah Jahan. And most of the buildings constructed during the time of Akbar were more utilitarian in nature, that were to be used, right? Rather than as a symbol, most of the buildings were to be used. For example, you take Agra Fort. Agra Fort was a place where Akbar resided, Fatehpur Sikri. So all these things were very, very important. But if you take the example of Shah Jahan, so when he built your Taj Mahal, is something which was a kind of a symbol of love which he made, right? It was not something where he can live, right? Or actually do the proceedings of his court. That was nothing but the show-off kind of monument which was being built by Shah Jahan. Why? Because by his time, the economy of the Mughals was very, very prosperous. They were actually progressing at a very, very rapid rate. So this is how exactly archaeological sources help us in understanding the time, help us in understanding the circumstances of any particular place, any particular dynasty. तो ये सब चीजें बहुत ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाती हैं when we talk about the archaeological sources, right? So when we talk about the archaeological sources, they actually include, as I told you, your monuments, your coins, your inscriptions, monuments, coins, your inscriptions, seals, right? So all these things are actually the part of your archaeological sources, and this is something which is very, very interesting to read, very, very interesting to explore, right? Point is, if you see, the archaeological sources actually tells us the information sometimes which are not there in the literary sources, which are not present in the written sources. For example, earlier it was believed that the Indian civilization started from the time of Vedic period, but it was the discovery of monuments, of the town planning, of the urban planning from the Harappan civilization, that the date of the Indian civilization was now pushed back even further. So this is how exactly monuments try to, or archaeological sources in general, they try to kind of supplement the information which is not available in the written sources. वो written sources की कमियों को पूरा करते हैं. For example, if I talk about coins, When I talk about coins, the point is that an entire dynasty like the Indo-Greeks, they were discovered because of the coins they manufactured, because of the coins they produced. So the entire reconstruction of the Indo-Greek dynasties during the early Christian era in the Indian history is because of the coins which were available to us, right? So ये सब चीजें हैं which tells us about the genealogy, about the chronology of a particular dynasty, right? तो ये ऐसे ऐसे archaeological sources आपको समझाने में exactly help करते हैं, and that is something which we need to understand. फिर आ गया आपका inscription, right? I'll tell you 2 or 3 lines about all of these, but let me just form a story around these. Inscriptions. Inscriptions क्या होते हैं? Inscriptions, if you have seen, like the Ashokan inscriptions, which were very, very important source for understanding the Mauryan dynasty. Inscriptions क्या हैं? जैसे pillars हैं, rock cuts, right? Rocks के ऊपर exactly उन्होंने अपने language के अंदर चीजें लिख रखी हैं या message लिख रखा है, which the king wanted to tell to his people, which the king wanted to portray. So that is how exactly inscriptions are very, very important sources of information, right? The information which is present in inscriptions is very, very helpful in understanding what exactly was the temperament of a particular king. For example, अगर हम अशोका को देखते हैं, so what was Ashoka doing is he was actually getting his message of Dhamma imprinted on these inscriptions. तो पूरा का पूरा इन inscriptions के ऊपर exactly वो लिखवाता था, right? तो इससे हमें पता लगता है that he was a follower of Buddha, right? How exactly he wanted to work for the welfare of the people. तो वो सारी चीजें हमें पता लगती हैं from the inscriptions, right? तो ये सब चीजें हैं. उस टाइम पे स्क्रिप्ट कौन सी यूज होती थी, दैट इज ऑल्सो बीइंग टोल्ड टू अस बाय द इंस्क्रिप्शंस. तो ये सब चीजें हैं जो आर्कियोलॉजिकल सोर्सेज हमें हेल्प करते हैं इन अंडरस्टैंडिंग द इवेंट्स, द हिस्ट्री ऑफ अ पर्टिकुलर टाइम. So this is how exactly the monuments, the coins, the inscriptions are very, very important, and this is something which you need to understand, right? Okay. Any problem anyone has? If anyone has any problem, they can actually tell me before I move forward and start asking you people various questions. Okay. Seals we are just talking about. Don't worry about the seals. But the portion till now I am asking. Seals we are going to talk about. No problem about that. Pottery. Yes, Anil. Pottery is again a very, very important idea. Right? So when we talk about Anil, your pottery. So pottery is not something जो present form में अभी हम देखते हैं, हमेशा से वैसी ही थी. At the beginning, which we are going to see today in the Stone Age to your Neolithic to Chalcolithic, we will see that the pottery earlier was made by hand. It was hand woven pottery. Slowly and steadily, it was then made into a wheel pottery. And one more thing which we need to understand about pottery is that there are various kinds of potteries which are available, right? For example, there is a particular form of pottery known as Northern Black Polished Ware, NBPW, Northern Black Polished Ware, which was the most luxurious form of pottery because of the designs, because of the gloss, because of the because of the making style. Everything actually tells us that this pottery was very, very luxurious. So this also tells us the people who were using it were also quite advanced in their civilization. Similarly, we tend to find pottery which is not exactly very refined, right? Which is not exactly that properly crafted. So it tells us that might be the people, they were not that economically well off, they were not that advanced, they did not have the technology, which was available to other people. So this is how exactly pottery was also very, very important, right? So this is a very interesting idea. And then Rosal says, okay. Okay, fine. Rosal, the source which you from read is what I have done is I have written all these ideas very, very extensively in my notes, which I think would have been provided to you by now, right? So in those notes, the ideas about Vedas and everything has been properly given. And also what you need to understand is that in the yesterday's class, right, what we did about Vedas, what we did about Puranas was only a kind of an introduction. Why? Because later on we are actually going to cover all these things in a greater detail. The sources of history is just a chapter to make you kind of acquainted with the fact that ये सब चीजें होती हैं which are there in order to understand the idea of history, right? So this is something which we need to understand. So notes के अंदर सारे ideas दे रखे हैं, and also when we move forward, like with the ideas of Vedas, with the ideas of Puranas, you are definitely going to get those ideas in the class itself, right? So if you still have any doubt, you can actually mail me and I can explain that particular point on the mail. And Mahima says paintings, jewelry, etc. are other archaeological sources. Yes, paintings. Let me tell you a very, very interesting thing about paintings. So paintings, again, what I see is, I'm very much fascinated by the Mughal era. So if you see paintings of Akbar, paintings of Jahangir, or paintings of Shah Jahan. So let me compare the paintings of Jahangir as Shah Jahan, right, for you people. The point यहाँ पर ये कहीं ना कहीं ये है that during the point of Jahangir, during the time of Jahangir, because Jahangir was much of a nature lover, he used to hunt, he used to go to the gardens. During his time, we have the most beautiful gardens which were set up, right? For example, in Kashmir, Shalimar Bagh, Nishad Bagh. So in his paintings, we actually see some kind of naturalism which is evident. But when we come to the time of Shah Jahan, what happens is his paintings, they were more kind of things which were used to showcase that what I have. It was something more in which Shah Jahan was trying to say कि ये चीजें सब मेरे पास है. Supposedly, in one of his paintings, what he did is he brought a very, very expensive vase from some Middle East country. So what he will do is he will stand near that particular vase, and with that particular standing, he will also wear his very, very good jewelry, clothes and everything, with his beard trimmed and everything. So he will get himself painted with that particular vase, right? So the paintings like these actually tells us that Shah Jahan was more into the artificial world, whereas Jahangir was more into the naturalistic settings. So this is how exactly your paintings become a source of archaeological history, right? That is something which we need to understand, right? So jewelry bhi hai. Mahima, jewelry is also a form of your archaeological source only, because earlier we used to find the jewelry of bones, made out of the bones. Slowly and steadily the metal began to be used for the making of jewelry. Then jewelry also began to be distinguished, that of the male jewelry, that of the female jewelry, right? So this is how exactly these are very, very important ideas for understanding any archaeological time. So seals, your pottery, your jewelry, your paintings, each of these things are very, very helpful in understanding the circumstances of any age. Seals, as somebody was asking me, seals, if you see, take an example from the Harappan seal. So seals during the time of Harappa were having many, many uses. For example, I just stated the two uses. One use of the seal was the educational purposes, right? So it might have been used for teaching the students, right? It might have been used as a board for teaching students, and the other purpose of the seal was that it was used as an identification marker for the foreign trade, for the overseas trade, right? So it used to have all the details and everything about the parcel which has to be exported to a particular place. And on the back side of the seal, sometimes you also have the information about the merchant who is exporting this particular idea. So in that particular manner, seal was also a very, very important archaeological source. And that is something which we need to understand, right? Okay, let me just... Yeah, weapons, everything, tools. Okay. So Asim, you want me to tell you about Samudragupta and Napoleon. A very, very interesting idea. I'll just tell you in your 2 lines or something. So Samudragupta was someone who was actually interested in expanding his empire to the fullest, right? He was interested in expanding his empire to the fullest, right? So much so that later on, during the time after French Revolution has happened, in 1799, there comes a French person known as Napoleon, if you remember from the world history class. So what Napoleon does is he wants to capture the whole world. At least he wants to capture Europe, Africa, and other parts, right? So both of them, Samudragupta, who is also known as the Napoleon of India, whereas according to me, what we can actually say is Napoleon is the Samudragupta of Europe. The point is, both of them actually wanted to expand their rule to an extent that they will be the most powerful people in the whole world. So this is what you need to understand when you're talking about Samudragupta and Napoleon in the same breath, right? So this is the basic idea. Okay, fine. So let me now also fulfill the requirements of the things which might come in the UPSC prelims examination, right? So let me now start by asking you some questions, right? Okay, let's see who answers them first. So the question is, yes. So the question is, what was the study of coin known as, or sorry, what is the study of coins known as? Let us see who answers it first. Numismatics. Nishta is the first one to actually answer it. So it's a twin finish, Minorika and Nishta, they are actually answering it in the first go. Good. So the point is, the study of coins is known as numismatics, right? It is known as your numismatics. So that is something which you need to remember when you are preparing for the UPSC prelims examination. The terminologies, the various terminologies, they are very, very important part of these days UPSC prelims examination. Like UPSC is actually very fond of asking you such kinds of questions in the examination based upon the single phrase. Like numismatics, they will actually ask you this question in 2 manners. They can ask you this question in 2 manners. First is, like what I have asked you, what is the study of coins known as, right? That can be the first question. Second question can be, numismatics is a field of archaeological study for which element, for which thing? Then you need to understand it is for the coins. So in this particular manner, when you read a particular book, you need to engage yourself, right? You need to understand कि UPSC questions कैसे पूछ सकता है, right? That is the only motive of our preparing for UPSC. We need to understand, we need to comprehend that what kind of questions can be asked in the UPSC examination. तो वो सब चीजें हैं जो हमें यहाँ पे देखनी है. Okay, let me ask you the second question. So the second question, I'll just say, you people tell me, what is the study? What is the study of inscriptions? What is the study of inscriptions known as? Okay, Sushant wins this time. So it is known as your epigraphy, right? So the study of inscription is known as epigraphy. So this is something which you need to understand when you are talking about the study of inscriptions. Inscription का writing style, उसकी language, उसका time period, everything needs to be situated, right? Everything needs to be understood. तो उसको पढ़ने के लिए the study of inscription is known as your epigraphy, and that is something which you need to understand when we are talking about the UPSC prelims examination. That epigraphy is a very, very important term, right? It is simple also, it is important also. So why not get the 2 marks straight away when we know the terminology, right? So this is the basic idea which we need to understand when we are preparing for your UPSC examination, right? तो ये सब चीजें हैं जो हमें exactly यहाँ पे देखनी है. So I just need to add one more line about the coins before I go on to the other sources. Coins. So coins are also very, very important, like I told you, in tracing the history of an entire dynasty such as the Indo-Greeks. They are very, very important. And also the coins tells us about the trading patterns, about the economic patterns of a particular age. For example, during the time of Gupta Empire, what we actually see is that there are huge number of gold coins which are present, right? Large number of gold coins are actually found during the time of Gupta Empire. So that is the basic idea which we need to understand, right? लेकिन बाद में the evidence of gold coins starts to decrease. There is less and less of gold coins which are present in the later age. So this actually tells us, we can infer this information from this particular fact is that the trade was very, very extensive during the time of the Gupta Empire. Long distance trade specifically was very, very important during the time of Gupta Empire. That is one thing which we need to understand. Their trade with the Romans was also very, very important, right? So in the later stages, what we see is that there's a paucity, there's a less and less of gold coins, which points out to the fact that कि कहीं ना कहीं जो trade है, that began to decrease. The international trade began to decrease. तो अब हम देखेंगे कि ऐसा क्यों हुआ. हम इसके रीजन ढूंढने की कोशिश करेंगे. We will look at the internal reason as well as the external reason. We will see that the Roman Empire starts to decline, and also there are weak successors in the Gupta Empire. So they are not able to sustain the trade anymore. So this is how exactly the coins are very, very important in understanding the history, the ideas of a particular time period. So this is how exactly you need to see that archaeological sources are very, very important, right? Okay. So please write a question for practice for the mains examination. Please write a question for practice for mains examination. Or mains examination. Okay. The question for practice says, write a short note on Kalhan's Rajat Tarangini. On Kalhan's Rajat Tarangini. Write a short note on Kalhan's Rajat Tarangini. So that is something which you need to write when you are talking about this Kalhan's Rajat Tarangini. Why I am giving you this particular question is because this was the first book which was written around 11th century in Sanskrit. In Sanskrit it was written, and it gives us a proper chronological order, right? There's a proper historical chronological dating, right, which has been given in this particular book, right? So this is a very, very important source of Indian history. So that is why sometimes in the UPSC, they actually ask you about the significance of Kalhana's Raj Tarangini or Rajat Tarangini in reconstructing the Indian past. Or you can actually also see this question in this particular manner. In this particular manner. What is the importance of Kalhana's Rajat Tarangini in understanding or reconstructing India's past? The word limit will be 150 words. The word limit would be 150 words. So this is how exactly you need to answer this particular question, right? What is the importance of Kalhana's Raj Tarangini in understanding or reconstructing India's past? तो ये सबसे ज़्यादा important चीज़ है which we need to understand, right? Okay. So this is the question for practice because this is the weekend. Today is the last class for this particular week. So I have given you the question. You have ample time of 2 days. You can actually do this question and then you can mail that particular question to me and I will check and give my particular responses on that, right? So this is what you need to do over the weekend. Okay, now let's move forward. Let's now quickly complete this particular topic and move forward to another topic. So the last important source for understanding the history of India is the foreign accounts. Is the foreign accounts or the accounts written by foreign travelers to India. That is something which we need to understand when we are talking about the foreign accounts, right? और foreign accounts से हमें ये भी चीज पता लगती है, it also tells us that India was not isolated. India was not isolated, but having contacts with other parts of the world, right? Other parts of the world. When various people are coming to India and writing about India, कहीं ना कहीं उसे ये पता लगता है कि India was not only surviving on its own, it had contacts with others. The foreign dignitaries used to visit India, they used to write about India. So that actually becomes a very, very important source. So we are now able to understand India from their eyes. From their eyes meaning from their viewpoint. So this is something which is very, very important. So foreign accounts are very, very important in understanding the history, understanding the various aspects of a particular time, right? For example, just give me an example of a foreign account which you think is very, very helpful in reconstructing the India's past. So whom do you think is very, very helpful in understanding India's past? Which foreign account could be seen in this particular manner? Okay, perfect. I thought most of you people will be giving this example only. Megasthenes, yeah, Kushi Indica. Perfect. So Manorika, Khushi, Prabhakar, all these have actually given the perfect answer. So what you need to understand is that there are various categories of foreign accounts. There are various categories of foreign accounts in which they can be seen. For example, is the Greco-Roman accounts, right? People who are coming from Greece, right? The Roman Empire, who are coming in India, they're staying in India, they're observing India, right? So that is how exactly these people are very, very important. For example, as you people have given me, so Megasthenes, who wrote this book Indica, is also very, very important for understanding the Mauryan time period. He was actually present at the court of the founder of the Mauryan dynasty, known as Chandragupta Maurya, right? The founder of the Mauryan dynasty, right? So that is the basic idea we need to understand. So Indica ke andar he tells us that how exactly the urban town planning committee was organized, how exactly the army was organized, how exactly the society of that particular time was there during the time of Chandragupta Maurya. So all these things can be seen during that particular accounts, right? Megasthenes gives us ample information. But my question to you people is all the information given in that particular account is true? Do you think we can take every information from those particular accounts to be true or on the face value? Or do we critically examine them? What do you people think? Okay. So yeah, somebody said Pliny. So Sushant, Pliny was actually a Latin chronicler who gives us information about the Indian animals, plants, and minerals, right? So yes, there's no mention of slavery. So yes, everybody is correct until now, right? You people keep on responding. I'll just keep on seeing. Point is, whenever you see a text, whenever you see something like Megasthenes, for example, Megasthenes says there was no caste system in India, which was not true at all. Sometimes, in order to kind of impress his masters, so hoga kya ki the person can write something which is not even existent in that particular empire. Like for example, Megasthenes write कि भैया चंद्रगुप्त मौर्य का पूरा जो आर्मी था, that was so large कि इतने थे. Point is, we need to be cautious. We need to be actually reading it with the critical eye. We need to understand कि उतनी army was not possible to engage at that particular point of time, right? So कहीं ना कहीं these foreign accounts are useful, but at the same time we need to understand कि ये लिखे क्यों गए थे, why exactly they were written, what was the ideological base behind their writing, what was the author thinking, what was his ideological inclination when he was writing that particular source. So critical examination of any source is the first thing which you need to do when you are doing your history, right? When you are reconstructing your history. Yes, Rosal, you're perfectly fine, right? So point is कि कहीं ना कहीं these authors, they might also try to kind of praise their emperors, right? Without them doing anything. कि हमारे एम्परर ने तो ये कर दिया है, ये उन्होंने पूरा चांद से लेकर धरती तक पूरा एक रेलवे लाइन बना दिया है. I'm not joking. This might seem like a little bit more extension, kind of exaggeration, but when there's a friend of mine, she's actually doing her PhD in ancient Indian history on these foreign accounts, on these epigraphy numismatics, on these inscriptions. So once I was reading her chapter, I think the second or the third chapter of her thesis. So in that particular chapter, some quote poet has written that my king, he has actually kind of gone to the moon, fought the people living in the moon, and then came back. So that is how exactly you need to be critically observant of the facts which are given in the book, right? तो ये सब चीजें होती हैं when you are doing this particular exercise about the foreign accounts. There were many foreign travelers to India, like your Fahim, who came during the time of Chandragupta of the Gupta dynasty, right? Or he was also known as the Vikramaditya. Then there was another Chinese traveler, Huin Tsang, who came during the time of Harsha, who ruled from 606 AD until 646 AD. So that is there. And later on, as we progress, we find various other sources. Like you people must have heard about Al-Biruni or Al-Biruni, right? Al-Biruni, Kitabul Hind. Al-Biruni is also a foreign traveler. He's not exactly a traveler. He was dragged to India by the invaders. He wrote what he saw in India, right? So इस तरीके से ये सारे accounts are also very, very helpful in understanding the history of any given time period, right? तो ये सारी चीजें हैं historical sources में which are helpful in reconstructing the past, right? So these were the things which were there in this particular topic, right? What you also need to understand is, like I told you the name, Megasthenes indica. I told you the name, Rajat Tarangini by Kalahana. So what you do is, Al-Biruni's Kitabul Hind, what you do is, you take 2 or 3 sheets, white sheets, उसपे करो क्या कि you just write important ancient authors, right? You write important ancient authors. So this exercise is very, very helpful. क्यों अभी बताता हूँ. Important ancient authors you write एक कॉलम में. साथ वाले कॉलम में what you write is their books. What exactly were the books they wrote. For example, you are taking Kalidasa. You write about his book Kumara Sambhav, Malvika Agnimitram, Abhigyan Shakuntalam. So just take Kalidas, write whatever is important about him. Then you take Rajat Tarangini, for example, you take Megasthenes, for example, you take Kautilya, for example, right? तो ये तो सारे examples जो हमने अभी भी देखे हैं. बहुत सारे examples धीरे धीरे और भी आएंगे. You just keep on adding them in the list. Then you make another list for medieval. When we come to medieval, we will make another list of important books and authors, right? Important books and authors. उसके अंदर तो बहुत सारे हैं. Like Delhi सल्तनत के टाइम पे different हैं. Your time of Mughals is a different person. So उसके टाइम पे ऐसे. Then we come to modern, right? When we come to modern, we will do that. तो ये सब चीजें हैं which you people need to do when you are preparing for UPSC. तो ऐसे करके अगर तुम टेबल अपने पास बना के रख लोगे ना, you will be very, very kind of safe when you are answering questions like these. Questions कैसे पूछते हैं? They will give you books, they will give you authors, right? This is the kind of question which can be seen in the exam. तो अब क्या होगा? Supposedly this is author A, B, C, D, something like this, right? So they might ask you 2 questions in this. तो क्या कह सकते हैं वो आपको? या तो match the following, right? Match the correct options with each other. ठीक है, वो एक हो सकता है. आप इसको पूरे को मैच कर दो, then the thing is done. Second question which can be asked in the exam regarding the books and the authors is that what you do is they give you the book, they give you the author in front of them, and then they told you, or then they actually tell you to find out the wrongly matched option. For example, they say Arthashastra. Arthashastra is by Kautilya, right? So that is the name of the book. And then they say your Megasthenes. So they give the name of Malvika Agnimitram, right? They give the name of Malvika Agnimitram. So they will tell you to identify the wrongly matched pair. जब आपके पास ये पूरी लिस्ट होगी, इसको आप रिवाइज करते रहोगे. Make this list, paste it in your room, ताकि डेली आते जाते आपको पूरा का पूरा नजर आए. So when you see this, you see, अरे ये तो गलत है. Megasthenes का बुक तो इंडिका था. See how easy? You get 2 marks. Instantly you get 2 marks. You just need to get the hang of the things कि करना कैसे है, right? पढ़ते रहो, अच्छा वो बुक वहां पर आई थी, वो बुक वहां पर आई थी, वो यहाँ पर आया था. Everything is a khichdi now. Point is, systematic note making is also the preliminary step in clearing your UPSC examination. So ऐसे ऐसे करके you need to prepare a list of books which are important for you in the examination, right? And what you can also do is, you can first of all start off by constructing a list of books important during the time of ancient India, right? You can do that. Take 5 days, 10 days, whatever you are comfortable with, and then submit that particular list of book to me. Then we will see that how much you have done. In the meantime, I will also forward a list of the books, but only after you people have done it. उससे होगा क्या कि तुम खुद मेहनत करोगे थोड़ी. So when you sweat more in practice, less you kind of tend to get injured in the real battle. So that is the basic idea. Please do this exercise and then I will forward the notes. So that is the thing which is done from my side. Now let's see the second topic for ancient Indian history, that is the prehistoric cultures in India. That is the prehistoric cultures in India. So that is what we are going to see now, right? So now everybody understands the meaning of prehistoric. What is prehistoric? Tell me. I have told you already. Tell me the meaning of prehistoric. Then I will move forward. Prehistoric. Let's see how many people remember. Let's see who answers it first. Let's see who answers it first. Okay, somebody has answered. Let me see. Mahima, I don't get this language. Yeah, maybe. No written evidence. No availability of written evidence. Okay, Khushi also says the vast period of time before written records. Before written records. Perfect, perfect. Mahima, you have said something, but that is beyond my comprehension. So you need to just rewrite it if you want. So yes, prehistory is a time when we do not have any written evidence which is available to us. So what do you people now think will be very, very helpful in reconstructing that particular past? How we are going to weave a narrative for understanding that particular past. Yes, Manorika, that's perfect. We are now going to rely entirely on the archaeological sources, the tools which we are going to get, right? The domestication of animals which we are going to do. So ये सब चीजें हैं which you need to now understand. So prehistoric culture is something before any written record was being done, right? उससे पहले कोई written records are not available at all. That is something which we need to understand, right? But before I progress to the topic, let me tell you what are the important points to consider for the UPSC examination, right? कि UPSC के अंदर what are the things which are helpful? क्योंकि हम प्री हिस्ट्री के अंदर सिर्फ वही चीजें एग्जैक्टली ध्यान से देने वाले हैं, समझने वाले हैं. Rest of the things are not important for us. We are only going to focus on those particular things. Okay. So prehistoric cultures in India. Characteristics plus important sites of 3 stone ages in India. That is Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. That what exactly were the characteristic of each age, right? That कि उस time पे exactly क्या क्या हो रहा है, that is something which we need to understand, right? Which we need to understand कि अगर Paleolithic age है तो उसमें कैसे human beings survive कर रहे हैं, that is something which we need to understand. और साथ साथ में what we also need to understand is that sites are very, very important. Sites of each stone age, right? Site of Neolithic age, sites of Paleolithic age, sites of your Mesolithic age, they are very, very important for understanding in the UPSC examination, right? Sometimes what they do is, I'll just tell you the kind of question which comes. They tell you the sites, right? And they tell you the Stone Age time, right? और उसके बाद वो क्या बोलेंगे कि that match the site with the Stone Age. For supposedly there was a site which was present in Paleolithic age, right? So you need to match that particular site with the Paleolithic age. Neolithic की अलग sites हैं तो उसको match करना पड़ेगा, right? So या फिर एक question एक और आ सकता है, identify from the following list the Paleolithic sites. The Paleolithic sites. ठीक है, वो लिस्ट दे देंगे पूरी, and then they will ask you कि इनमें से कौन कौन सी Paleolithic sites है. They can be Mesolithic also, they can be Neolithic also. That is something which you need to understand when you are talking about the sites. ठीक है, तो sites क्या है? I will give you the name of the sites in the class itself, but what you need to do is कि इन sites को एक मैप पे मार्क कर लेना, right? क्या करना है sites के लिए? Important tip for remembering sites, क्योंकि सारा का सारा खेल जो है यहाँ पे वो sites का है, right? Sites are very, very important in understanding the prehistory. The main question जो रहता है that is on the sites and the characteristic. ये दो चीजें अगर आपने इसमें से पढ़ ली, then the point is you are through with this particular topic. So important tip for remembering site is take a physical map of India, or what you can also do is wherever you are making notes, what you do is, like supposedly you have written Paleolithic on one page, then leave that particular page, right? Uske upar you can actually paste a map. You can actually, what you can do is you can use a stencil in order to highlight कि हाँ भैया ये सारी sites हैं of the Paleolithic, right? Take a physical map of India and mark the sites of each phase separately. The word is separately. ऐसा नहीं है कि खिचड़ी बना दोगे तो अगर तुम याद करने की कोशिश भी करोगे ना तो you won't be able to remember it for your entire life. So what you need to do is you need to take a physical map of India, mark these sites, and then they will be very, very important, right? तो उससे आपको exactly चीजें याद रखने में बहुत ज्यादा help हो जाएगी, right? तो ये तरीके हैं that how you need to prepare a particular topic for the UPSC examination. तो ये एक basic तरीका है. Mahima, I'll just come to you. Mahima and Sushant, I'll just come to you. Let me just complete this and I'll just come to you people. Okay. Fine. So the point is कि characteristics, important sites, ये दो सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीजें हैं जो कि हमने प्री हिस्टोरिक कल्चर के अंदर ध्यान से पढ़नी है. अगर हमने ये सारी चीजें पढ़ ली सो देन मोस्ट ऑफ द थिंग्स आर कवर्ड, क्योंकि ये साइट्स के ऊपर एक क्वेश्चन आता है और दे कैन एक्चुअली गिव यू अनदर क्वेश्चन लाइक कंसिडर द फॉलोइंग अबाउट Neolithic age. Consider the following about Neolithic age, right? So that is the basic idea, correct? So उसके अंदर Neolithic age के characteristics भी देंगे वो. So it is a question which is about the characteristic plus your sites. So this is something which you need to understand in the first go when we are talking about the prehistoric cultures in India, right? So this is the basic point which is there in this particular topic. Other questions such as when the fire was discovered. Anybody can tell me when was the fire was discovered? We can actually discuss this question on Monday also. So please keep an answer of this, that when was fire discovered, right? ये एक बात है जो सब लोग समझ जाते हैं. But the point is, sometimes in the UPSC they also ask you that when did the human beings learnt to control the fire? Fire discover करना एक different thing है, उस fire को control करना is a different ball game altogether, right? So that is something of a sort of question which you can expect from this particular portion. तो ये सब चीजें we will be doing on Monday, right? तो वो सब चीजें हैं. और prehistoric cultures की अगर हम जब बात करते हैं, let me give you a 2 or 3 minutes introduction, then we are going to start the major things on Monday. Prehistoric, when the things were not in the written form, we actually had to rely on the archaeological sources. So after getting relied on the archaeological sources and everything, what we have been able to see is that the human being has traveled a long distance for the present time. Whatever he is in the present time, for that he has crossed many phases. For example, Paleolithic की अगर हम बात करें, so the human being was more of a nomad, right? Human being was more of a nomad. He was only dependent on the hunting and gathering. He was residing near the source of food. Food khatam, he's gone. He did not know agriculture. He did not know domestication of animals. His tools were also very, very rudimentary. That is something which we need to understand. But when we talk about the next stage, that is the Mesolithic age, we see there's a little progress which has now gone, which is now going on. The human being has now progressed in making tools. Tools are now much advanced. The human beings in the later Mesolithic age, they have started to develop some sort of domestication. They have started to develop some sort of rudimentary agriculture, not the greatest of agriculture, but some sort of agriculture, right? ये developments धीरे धीरे होने start हो जाती हैं. Then we come to the Neolithic. Neolithic के अंदर क्या है? The things are now starting to progress. It is some sort of a greater evolution. The human beings have now become more settled. They are now more settled, engaging in agriculture, engaging in domestication of animals, engaging in better tool technology, engaging in making better pottery. So all these things are very, very important when we talk about the progress of the human society from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic. So all these things we will study in the class on Monday, right? Okay, but before I stop, I just need to take the questions. Okay, the questions are, Sushant, Iron Age is not a part of prehistoric culture because Sushant, Iron Age came during 6th century BC, which was the time of the second urbanization, right? Second urbanization meaning the evolution of Mahajanapadas, evolution of Buddhism and Jainism, more and more advancement in agriculture, and before that Vedic civilization has already been there. So it cannot be part of your prehistoric culture. Okay. So also Mahima is saying, sir, can we get these historical sources of the past to read, where we can find these books? Okay, Mahima, you just try. You just go to the internet and try the important sources of history. If you're still not able to find, I'll tell you कैसे करना है. वैसे in the books, as you read, as you progress through the NCERT books, you're going to find many, many answers to this. So Prabhakar says, Sir, I was watching this video on YouTube, Praveen Mohan, on which he says that we have missed a lot of evidences in examining the monuments in India. Okay. Prabhakar, as I tell you about the foreign accounts, what we also need to understand is that kahin na kahin people who are making the videos, people who are writing something about Qutub Minar, everything, we also need to understand that what exactly are their ideological ideas. And also, you are correct when we say that we have missed many evidences. क्योंकि हमेशा आर्कियोलॉजिस्ट के लिए सारे एविडेंसेस को देखना या उन्हें फाइंड करना इज नॉट पॉसिबल. इट इज quite normal to understand कि कुछ ना कुछ evidences उससे छूटे होंगे. So what I'll do is I'll just check this video. What is the name? Praveen Mohan. So I'll check his video and then tell you whether you need to watch it or not. So with this, I just sign off for today's session and I'll see you people in the next class on Monday. Thank you.